Healthy, fresh food tends to be expensive, so it's easy to understand why people who qualify for government assistance stock up on cheaper, often unhealthy options. As part of our focus report on government programs with unintended consequences, we look at new Harvard research suggesting a link between the federal SNAP program and poor eating habits. WGBH News reporter Adam Reilly has our story.
The federal government's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is huge, serving 1 in 7 Americans. SNAP costs roughly $80 billion a year and is supposed to help poor Americans eat better, but it may also be causing problems.
People on SNAP have even higher rates of obesity, hypertension, and prediabetes than people of similar income not on SNAP.
In a series of studies, Harvard nutritionist Walter Willett and his colleagues have found that when people receive SNAP benefits, their health actually gets worse.
And we would have hoped with this large investment in food and supposedly nutrition that people on the program would be better off than people not on the program. And it turned out to be, if anything, the opposite.
That may be because poor people also tend to eat poorly. And when they get SNAP benefits, they buy even more bad stuff. Fortunately, Willett says there is a solution.
It's very reasonable to have some limits on what SNAP resources can be spent on. For example, limiting soda and other sugar-sweetened beverages.
But when then-Mayor Michael Bloomberg tried to do that in New York, the federal government nixed the idea. Willett blames lobbying by the food industry, but there's also opposition on the political left.
Is Coke poison?
John Drew is the head of the anti-poverty group Action for Boston Community Development. He says that once the government starts limiting poor people's diets, there's no telling how far it will go.
You shouldn't drink coffee, shouldn't drink tea. Don't do sugar, don't do fat, don't do salt.
Drew says a host of factors shape SNAP recipients' food choices, from a dearth of nearby supermarkets to limited food budgets.
They're making other choices because they have to.
Going for cheaper products.
They have to. You buy bulk, you buy frozen, you buy maybe things that are a little more starchy. You want to fill the kids up.
To be clear, Drew has no problem teaching low-income individuals how to eat healthier. ABCD does this every day in its citywide Head Start program, and Drew says it's paying off.
Our obesity rates in children in our Head Start program has gone down 40% over the last few years. It can work.
The difference, Drew says, is that teaching poor people to eat better is respectful, but banning certain products is not.
We got to get dignity. Some form of dignity left and pride. Let's not get to the point where we're going to say, we're going to tell you how to live your life.
But Harvard's Walter Willett says that argument cuts both ways.
The kids growing up in these homes are having their freedom of choice hugely limited. They're developing obesity, getting diabetes as adolescents, and for them, freedom of choice means many years shorter of life to live.
This is a politically fraught moment for SNAP. The program is slated to be cut almost $9 billion over the next decade. Emily, I think that makes advocates of the program, like John Drew, a little bit defensive when they hear criticisms like Walter Willett's. Walter Willett, for his part, stresses that he is not an opponent of SNAP. He thinks the program is vital. He just believes it could be working a lot better than it currently is.
Well, other than banning soda, soft drinks, does he think that would be a solution alone, or would he do ban some other
He believes that's something to try at the outset. He wants to proceed slowly. I think he thinks that's the right starting point. But he also is a big advocate, like John Drew, of increased nutritional education. He thinks that if the federal government spent, say, 1% of its SNAP budget, which could be, $8 billion annually, that it would make a huge difference and really pay off for society long term.
All right, Adam, thanks for that.
Thanks, Emily.
My next guest can speak from personal experience about the impact of food assistance programs. Jenny Reynolds is a former recipient of SNAP benefits. Welcome to Greater Boston, Jenny.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I'm curious, listening to that, if you feel now, looking back when you were on the SNAP program, did you make poor choices when you were using SNAP money because some of the bad foods are cheaper and easier to kind of pull together?
Well, I'd say in some circumstances, definitely. I mean, there's a part of it where by the end of your 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you're running out of funds and, you get pretty hungry. And that first shopping trip, when you have a large lump sum in there, you do make some, not so great choices, especially with little kids tagging along. And that's not the greatest. But on a whole, my family was on the SNAP program for about 2 years. And judging from the beginning to the end, we actually ate better by the end of the time we were on the program. I think it was more that we had this money allotted to food. We weren't scraping it together. and we made better choices. And it's worked out really well for us.
Do you find it patronizing when you hear people like Walter Willett say you have to put these kind of constraints? There's already constraints. Let's make that clear. We were just saying you can't buy a whole baked hot chicken, but you can buy a whole baked cold chicken. So there are certain restrictions. Do you find it patronizing for somebody to say you can't buy soft drinks?
I would say yes in my family. I mean, we're not coffee drinkers. We definitely have a little soda thing going on. It's not, again, not the greatest thing in the world, but everybody has their little vice. And I realize that it is, a handout, and it is, a program that's to help people who are at a lesser advantage. But at the same time, you take those choices away, people are gonna get what they want no matter what. However they're going to get it, if it's going to be from this money or from whatever other money they can scrape together. I think the teaching would be a much better way to go about getting things better on the program.
All right, I'm going to bring Charlie Cipio into the discussion. He's a research fellow at the Harvard Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation and is the principal of Cipio Strategies. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you,
so you've got a little bit of a libertarian in you. So how do you feel about this restricting what kind? I mean, you also aren't exactly embracing big government, but how do you feel about restricting what SNAP money can buy?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to Jenny, and I think she's right on. I mean, I think that when we have programs like SNAP, we have to put in place certain limits and things like that. But I think that, if we've learned anything over the years, it's that when government tries to set sort of very strict rules about how we should live, it generally doesn't turn out very well. And, I think that I would lean toward being a little bit less intrusive rather than more so.
The whole idea when we started doing this focus series about was kind of unintended consequences of big government programs.
Yeah.
And one of the unintended consequences of this is, while it's motivated to help people like Jenny get on the feet and get going, it can also promote poor eating habits, which is why, people are looking at this. Is why Michael Bloomberg and people like, Mayor Menino wanted to ban soda in schools. So they want to say, as long as we've got the opportunity here, we can put even greater government restrictions on this because it's our money.
Well, I mean, but you look at something like that, and you look at, say, I don't mean to knock him, but I mean, did Tom Menino look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? I mean, Tom Menino looked like he probably had some soda, along the way, and I mean, it's this idea that when government takes on this sort of do as I say, not as I do kind of role, I think that it is offensive. I think that it is contrary to the whole idea of human dignity and the whole idea of government, that comes up from the people rather than, looks down and tells us what to do. I mean, it seems to me when I look back at my civics classes, that was sort of the whole idea here, wasn't it? I just think there's more important roles that government can play. And government, across the board, there's no end of issues where government gets the incentives wrong. And I think that if we could back off a little bit and work on getting those general incentives right, it would make just a huge difference.
Jane, were you ever made to feel badly about using SNAP?
I can tell you one very specific instance where we didn't even use our benefits. We turned around and walked away. Every spring and summer, they make a big deal from the program. They'll send you mailings and everything. Go to the farmers markets. EBT is accepted there. And let me tell you, even the Revere Beach farmers market right along the beach, you walk up and down every stall, there's no sign that says, we accept EBT here. There's no, they don't reach out to you. And this is a chance to buy real healthy food in your community right there. Because to go back for 1 second, there are bigger issues at hand. There are transportation issues. You can't be taking fresh produce back and forth. Sometimes in the dead of the winter and the heat of the summer, it's not always feasible.
You don't always have access to stores and things where you can get fresh stuff.
Exactly, and you might be living with family or in really tight, situation. And
so these people rejected you, is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, right out. I mean, we also had, at the time, WIC coupons, and those were widely accepted, and those are much more difficult to use, but the EBT was just like please don't even bring this up, and we just bought a few things with cash and walked away.
Government should start regulating those farmers markets. What do you think?
Yeah, no, please.
Get them down there.
Hands off, I'm begging you.
All right. Jenny Reynolds, thanks for coming, telling your story. Charlie Cipio, as always, appreciate it.